This was the real-life Mean Girls, only instead of high school drama, it ended in unspeakable horror. When 12-year-old Shanda Scherer opened her front door one January night in 1992, she had no idea she was walking into one of the most horrific murder plots in Indiana history. Shortly after Shanda moved into town, classmate Melinda Loveless, jealous over Shanda's relationship with Loveless's ex-girlfriend, lured Shanda from her home under false pretenses with the help of 3 female accomplices. At a remote site called the Witch's Castle, they stripped, beat, and stabbed Shanda several times, inflicting painful but non-fatal wounds. Shanda, still alive, was forced into a car trunk and endured hours of torture, including burns from a cigarette lighter and a brutal sexual assault with a tire tool, causing severe physical trauma. The next morning, the group doused the conscious but weakened girl with gasoline and set her on fire, as she eventually died from thermal injuries and smoke inhalation. Her charred body was found in a field later that day, and the 4 perpetrators were arrested after one of the accomplices boasted to peers. Perhaps the most disturbing part of this entire case is that as of October of 2025, all of the perpetrators are now free, including the ringleader Melinda Loveless, who was released on parole in 2019. In 2011, one of the most horrific workplace murders unfolded inside a Lululemon store in Bethesda, Maryland. When employees arrived one morning, they found the shop in pure chaos. Blood smeared across the walls and floor, broken merchandise scattered everywhere, and 2 female employees lying in the back room. One of them was 30-year-old Jana Murray, beaten and slashed beyond recognition. The other woman, her coworker Brittany Norwood, was tied up and claiming that 2 masked men had broken in and attacked them both. But investigators quickly realized her story didn't add up. Forensics revealed that Murray had sustained at least 331 separate injuries from a hammer, wrench, knife, rope, box cutter, and metal stand, and that she had been alive for all of them, her body showing signs of conscious struggle throughout the 15-minute assault. It turned out Norwood had killed her coworker after being caught trying to steal merchandise, then staged the entire scene and bound herself to make it look like a robbery. The crime completely shocked the nation, not just for its savagery, but for the fact that every blow, cut, and stab was inflicted by someone that Murray had entrusted to lock up the store beside her. 18-year-old Kylie Montero thought she was starting her future, newly graduated, 11 weeks pregnant, and dreaming of naming her baby girl Eleanor. But instead, she walked straight into a nightmare. Her boyfriend, 22-year-old Gregory Groom, had a violent history she tried to escape, even hiding in a domestic abuse shelter for 3 weeks. But like too many victims before her, she went back hoping he'd change. On August 6, 2025, during a late-night visit to his house, an argument turned terrifying when Gregory threw her to the ground, pulled her hair, and started strangling her. Knowing something was seriously wrong, she sent one last chilling text to her sister. "My phone is at 4%. If I die, it was Greg." Moments later, he reportedly stabbed her in the neck and chest, killing not just Kylie, but also the unborn child she was excited to raise. Instead of calling for help, he spent hours digging a grave in his own backyard, and around sunrise, he shoved her body into the shallow hole like trash. For 13 days, Kylie's family begged for answers while Gregory acted innocent, until police finally found her buried behind his house. He was arrested and has pleaded not guilty. She was so terrifying that even cartel assassins refused to say her name out loud. Melissa La Diabla Calderon became one of the most feared women in cartel history because her crimes went far beyond gunshots and executions. Working with the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, she targeted the most vulnerable, migrants, pregnant women, and the homeless, luring them with promises of safetier work before trapping them inside of makeshift clinics. Investigators say she performed crude C-sections to steal newborns for black market adoption, while the mothers were left to bleed out on the table. In other cases, victims were cut open and stripped of their organs, their bodies dumped or incinerated before corrupt medical contacts funneled their organs to wealthy buyers. Witnesses reported hearing screams through the walls at night, and bodies were found mutilated or missing several organs. Even hardened cartel enforcers were terrified of La Diabla, calling her the devil in human skin. When she was finally arrested, authorities believed dozens, maybe hundreds of her victims would never be found. In 1968, 20-year-old college student Barbara Jane Mackle was bedridden with the flu in a Georgia motel, unaware that 2 strangers had been stalking her and planned one of the most sadistic kidnappings in U.S. history. At 4 a.m., there was a knock at the door. A man dressed as a police officer stood outside with a badge, claiming Barbara's boyfriend had been in a serious car accident and was asking for her. But it was a calculated lie. The kidnappers had researched her personal life, knew her boyfriend's name, and used emotional manipulation to get her mother to open the door. The second they stepped inside, the disguise dropped. The man pulled a gun. His female accomplice used chloroform on her mother, and Barbara was tackled to the ground. As they tied her up and dragged her away, they said that if she screamed or fought back, they would kill her boyfriend. Sick, terrified, and believing her silence was the only way to protect him, Barbara didn't resist as they shoved her into a car and drove deep into the woods. There, the kidnappers revealed something even more twisted. They had built a custom coffin for Barbara, just 6 feet long, 2 feet wide, and 3 feet high, equipped with a dim light, a fan, and water laced with sedatives to keep her weak and compliant. Before sealing the lid, they snapped a Polaroid of her trapped inside, holding a sign that said kidnapped, then buried her alive under the dirt. Alone with the flu in total darkness, Barbara could barely move as the fan buzzed weakly. Insects crawled across her skin, and she prayed that the air wouldn't run out. The kidnappers then contacted her father, Robert F. Mackle, a millionaire real estate tycoon, and demanded $500,000 in cash, one of the largest ransom demands in U.S. history. Despite FBI warnings, her father personally paid the ransom, driving the money himself while federal agents hid in his trunk. But after they took the cash, the kidnappers ran off without revealing where she was buried, leaving the FBI racing to locate a hidden grave in miles of forest while Barbara was slowly suffocating underground. For 83 agonizing hours, she lay buried alive, hallucinating from fear and sedatives. At one point, rainwater began leaking into the coffin and she was prepared to drown. When the FBI finally captured the kidnapper and forced him to talk, agents dug frantically through the dirt until they heard faint knocking from below. They ripped the lid open, and a trembling, dirt-covered Barbara whispered, "You're the most beautiful sight I've ever seen." Her kidnapper, Gary Christ, was sentenced to life but paroled after just 10 years, became a doctor, and was later arrested again for smuggling drugs. In February of 2000, Australian slaughterhouse worker Catherine Knight murdered her partner John Price in their home in Aberdeen, New South Wales. After an argument, she waited for him to fall asleep and stabbed him 37 times as he tried to escape, with blood evidence showing he made it to the front door before collapsing. Once he was dead, Knight used her butchering skills to skin his body in one piece and hung the skin on a meat hook in the living room. She then decapitated him and placed his head in a pot of boiling water, along with pieces of flesh to make a stew. She also cooked parts of his glutes in the oven and arranged 2 dinner plates with meat, vegetables, and gravy, each labeled with the names of Price's children, indicating she had intended to serve them their father. Police discovered the staged meal, the pot on the stove, and Price's skin hanging inside the house. Knight pled guilty to murder and in 2001 was sentenced to life in prison without parole, becoming the first woman in Australian history to receive that sentence. 17-year-old Louisiana girl Caitlin Strait was 28 weeks pregnant when a road rage incident suddenly ended her life. She was shot in the head, declared brain dead, and doctors had to perform an emergency C-section to save her baby. She and her friends were simply driving when another vehicle pulled up and opened fire. Even worse, police said they had no idea why the shooter even targeted them. There was no crash, no argument, no warning. The teen was rushed to the hospital, but her injuries were irreversible, and she was kept alive just long enough to deliver her premature baby. To this day, the killer has never been found, and the motive remains a mystery. David Parker Ray wasn't just a serial killer. He did things to women so horrific that the FBI agents who investigated him needed therapy. In Elephant Butte, New Mexico, he constructed a custom soundproof trailer he called the Toy Box, filled with whips, chains, saws, medical equipment, video cameras, and even a mechanical torture device he built himself. When victims woke up strapped to a gynecologist table, he played a 20-minute audio tape calmly explaining how he was going to rape, torture, and break them over the next several days.
Hello there, bitch. Are you comfortable right now? I doubt it. Wrists and ankles chained, gagged, probably blindfolded. You are disoriented and scared too, I would imagine. Perfectly normal under the circumstances. Now, you are obviously here against your will. Totally helpless. Don't know where you're at. Don't know what's going to happen to you. You're very scared or very pissed off. I'm sure that you've already tried to get your wrists and ankles loose. No, you can't. Now you're just waiting to see what's going to happen next. You probably think you're going to be raped, You're f***ing sure right about that.
Ray's girlfriend and even his own daughter helped him kidnap women, and after days of torture, he would drug them with amnesia-inducing sedatives and dump them in the desert so disoriented they couldn't report what happened. Investigators later found journals detailing 40 years of abuse and believe he murdered up to 60 women, but not a single body has ever been found. Ray was only caught in 1999 when a victim escaped naked with a metal dog collar still around her neck, leading police to the toy box, a torture chamber so sadistic that FBI agents who entered it required extensive therapy. But despite the unimaginable horror, Ray was never convicted of murder, dying of a heart attack in 2002 and taking his most awful secrets to his grave.